Coming to paperback and e-readers in 2021, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks on a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business in 2021 at online booksellers everywhere.
Don't let your thirst cost you your freedom. That's some advice I want to give all of the thirsty males out there who are caught up in their feelings about the attention some woman gives them. Now, after I watched the video on the news about the woman in Harlem who was assaulted by a group of thirsty guys inside of a St. Nicholas Avenue liquor store, after she rejected their advances, I realized how many thirsty guys take their freedom for granted. Now, many of your thirsty guys are so caught up in their emotions about getting the attention of a woman that they're not thinking about their intangibles of manhood. And a man's most important intangible of manhood is his freedom. And if a man does not think critically about situations he has inside of a community, he can wind up losing his freedom like that. And he'll lose his freedom because he's not thinking about situations he's getting involved in or situations he'll put himself in. And your thirsty guy oftentimes is so caught up in his emotions about the attention he wants to get from a woman who looks a certain way that he doesn't understand that if he pushes past boundaries too far, he can put himself at jeopardy of losing his freedom. So, your thirsty guy, what he will do when he sees a woman is he will try to start making advances towards said woman, like this guy did in the liquor store, and he won't know where the line is. So, when the woman says no, that's when said guy gets caught up in his feelings and he decides to attack the woman because he's caught up in having his fantasy shattered. And what he doesn't understand is by attacking that real woman, he can be winding up in a reality where his whole world can change. Because when a male puts his hands on a woman who rejects him, what he's doing is committing a crime. And that felony can wind up with that male losing not only his freedom, but he's also going to wind up with a jail record and he's going to wind up in prison, possibly, all because he was so caught up in his feelings in a moment, he couldn't see how he was doing damage to himself that was going to impact him for a lifetime. And that's what your thirsty guy doesn't really think about when he's out here, when he sees these females. He's not thinking about how a getting caught up momentarily in some lust can cost him an entire lifetime. And him getting caught up in his feelings over a female and not understanding where the boundaries are can wind up with him doing time inside of a penitentiary. So he can go from hollering at females to hollering inside of a jail cell where Bobby and Mr. Marcus are getting hold of him. And that can happen in an instant when your thirsty guy is not thinking critically and he's just getting so caught up in his feelings about being rejected by said woman. So he will wind up getting rejected by the woman, getting caught up in his anger, and then that anger will lead to him assaulting said woman and then winding up getting locked up and then getting turned out by the guys inside of the jail cell who will turn that tight end into a wide receiver and sate that deep down, dirty body thirst with a nice, big, thick protein shake. And that's something your thirsty guy isn't really thinking about, because he's so in his lust over said female that he cannot think about the big picture. And that's why a man has to learn discipline and resolve, because when you learn discipline and resolve, you can think critically and you can think about the big picture. And as you think about the big picture, you realize there are some things that are more important than getting the attention of said female. And there are things like your dignity, which is value of self, your self worth in seeing your value as a man, and your freedom, which is your ability to go from place to place. Because a man who understands his intangibles of manhood, such as his dignity, his self worth, and especially his freedom, understands that when a woman says no, that means that you have the freedom to continue going out here and being able to pursue other women if you have that option. So by going out here and attacking a woman who rejects you, you are going to wind up losing your freedom. And when you lose your freedom, that means you're going to wind up inside of Rikers Island and possibly wind up in a penitentiary for years, losing time out of your life over a moment you could have just let go by and had more time out of your life to pursue more productive goals. That's what a critical thinking man would do. He would understand that it's better for him to just take the rejection and have his freedom than go out here, get caught up in his emotions, and then wind up losing his freedom and losing years out of his life, and then after that, winding up with a felony conviction on his record, like those guys who attacked that woman in the liquor store. That's going to be in their future, having a felony conviction on their record and winding up possibly being blacklisted from being able to find any sort of employment in the future. Because when a male gets a sex crime on their record, what happens is they wind up being in a section of men who are considered not only unemployable, but men who are considered undesirable. And that's why a man needs to have discipline, because your thirst can wind up costing you so much in the future. That's why a man has to quench that thirst, and he has to get some discipline as related to himself, because all a man with thirst does is get so caught up in his emotions that he winds up doing something that he winds up having to pay the consequences for years on end. And that's why a man should never let his thirst cost him his freedom. And that's why a man has to learn how to navigate through his emotions and work through whatever feelings he's having. While he may have feelings to do certain things, he cannot act on those feelings, because if he acts on said feelings, he can wind up getting locked up for a long time and wind up with a record after that could follow him for the rest of his life. And this is something many of your thirsty guys aren't really thinking about out here. All they're thinking about is, oh, she got a big butt, she looks fly. But time can wind up flying by you when you get a felony on your record for getting involved with said female. So your thirsty guys, they really need to take a minute and think about things, because again, all it takes is one moment to change your entire life, and all it takes is one moment to take you from being a man who is free walking up and down these streets to being a man who is being turned out inside of one of these penitentiaries and being turned out over something trivial. Because after you attack this female with this thirsty behavior, you're the one who's going to wind up losing in the end, because you're not only going to not get the girl, you're going to lose your freedom, and you're going to lose your reputation and your ability to make a living. And these are things that many of your males don't think about because they don't understand how to navigate the world as a man, because a man understands that he has to think in the long term, because he has to think about his future, and he's not going to put his future at risk because he understands that he needs to quell those thirsts inside of him by having the discipline and self-control to not act on his impulses, because for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and that's why a man has to respond by having strong self-control. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my men's issues books like Stop Simpin' to learn how to not be a thirsty guy, you can find that book on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find it on Smashwords, the iBookstore, Barnes & Noble, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available on Kindle, E-Steam No Good Deed. The Devilish Diva scares some stick-up kids straight in this action-packed E-Steam series comic. Get E-Steam No Good Deed on Kindle for 99 cents today.